For the first time in 3 months, we finally have a clearer picture of what happened to Tyrone Dro Davis Jr. Not speculation, not social media rumors. A reconstruction built on actual evidence, surveillance footage, witness statements, medical findings, and the expertise of professionals who do this work for a living. And what they've uncovered does not look good for the person who was with Dro when he died. Today's revelation implicates Lulu more than any online theory ever could. Inconsistencies in her own statements, a timeline that doesn't add up, injuries that contradict the accident narrative, and a girlfriend who, after Dro was rushed to the hospital, didn't even know which hospital he was taken to. Before we break this down, this is True Crime Unraveled. To everyone watching, commenting, and sharing, we see you. And to our super thanks gifters, you are the reason we can keep digging. Thank you. This is the update we've been waiting for. Channy Jackson and Natalie Davis went live to share something rare in this case, actual verified information. Not drama, not accusations, facts. They've assembled a research team of independent experts from across the country. A forensic nurse with 17 years of experience who's performed autopsies. A certified crime analyst with degrees in human behavior and forensics. A documentation specialist with 12 years of experience. And a nationally FBI certified private investigator with 28 years in law enforcement. These aren't random internet voices. These are people who do this work professionally. And they've spent hours combing through every piece of available evidence, 911 calls, surveillance footage, medical records, scene photos. What they've built is a preliminary working theory based solely on facts. And for the first time, the fog is lifting. Let's start with the timeline. After leaving Papa John's, the car traveled to the intersection of Southwest 34th Boulevard and Archer Road, where Lulu made a U-turn. Then the vehicle continued toward the I-75 on-ramp, passing the left turn at Southwest 37th Boulevard, which would have taken them back toward their hotel. They drove past 3 separate turnoffs, 3 chances to go back to where they were staying. Instead, they ended up making another U-turn near the I-75 on-ramp. That's where DRO was later found. Think about that. If you're going back to your hotel after grabbing pizza, how do you end up 3 intersections past it? That's not a wrong turn. That's a detour. And the only person who can explain why is Lulu. The research team mapped the entire route using Google overhead views and timestamps from the pizza box to the 911 call. They even have the ability, once the black box data is obtained, to see acceleration rates, braking patterns, and whether the car was being driven erratically. But even without that, the path alone raises serious questions. Now let's talk about what the medical evidence shows. Dro suffered catastrophic blunt force trauma to the base of his skull. The force was so severe it shattered the bone into multiple pieces, with fragments displaced toward the front. That kind of injury doesn't happen from a fall or a jump. It's the kind of blow you'd expect from a hard object, possibly a firearm, a blunt instrument, or something similar. And here's what the medical experts concluded. That injury happened after leaving Papa John's, not at the cabin in Gilchrist County, not hours earlier. Because if it had happened earlier, Dro would not have survived long enough to make it to Gainesville. They explained it in medical terms, a lucid interval. After a severe brain injury, a person may still appear conscious and capable of purposeful actions for a brief period. But internally, bleeding and swelling are rapidly increasing. During that window, Dro likely asked to get out of the car, opened the door, stepped out, and closed it behind him. He may have appeared alert to Lulu. But then the lucid interval ended. He collapsed. And what happened next was a neurological storm, writhing, groaning, loss of bodily control. That's what the first witnesses saw. And here's where Lulu's own words become impossible to ignore. In the same 911 dispatch recordings, Lulu made 2 contradictory statements. In one, she said she looked in the rearview mirror after Dro got out and saw him walk away and then kneel. In another, she said she was going 25 to 30 miles per hour and did not look back. Which is it? Did she see him or didn't she? Even at the scene, before she had time to coordinate a story, the statements didn't match. The research team also pointed out something else that should trouble everyone. After Dro was rushed to the hospital, Lulu did not follow the ambulance. She didn't know which hospital he was taken to, even though Archer Road is a straight shot to Shands. She had to ask or find out later. If your loved one is in critical condition, you're in that ambulance or right behind it. You're not sitting at a gas station. You're not waiting. You're not asking which hospital. The failures didn't stop with Lulu. They started with GPD. When the first responders arrived, they did not secure the scene. They walked through Dro's blood and through his bodily fluids as if it was nothing. They did not recognize the severity of his condition, despite the writhing and groaning. Classic signs of a catastrophic brain injury. Days later, when the family went to the scene, the pizza boxes were still there. The wings, the evidence, all of it untouched, uncollected, unsecured. The research team was adamant this should have been treated as a crime scene from the moment they saw a man lying in the road with bleeding and no clear explanation. But it wasn't. And that's why we're here 3 months later, with a family still searching for answers. While we're at it, let's clear up the noise. The research team debunked the rumor of a third person in the car. There was no space in Lulu's vehicle for anyone else. They also debunked the red car speculation and the video from Wawa. It was a black BMW unrelated to the case. The family made no money off t-shirts. They were transparent about the cost, $30 per shirt, and they covered the extra sizes themselves. Zero profit. And the story of 3 bowls of grits at the cabin? There were only 2. No third person. The truth is slowly separating from the lies. So where does this leave us? For 3 months, we've been drowning in drama, family infighting, accusations, distractions. But now, for the first time, we have a clear, evidence-based reconstruction of what likely happened to Tyrone Davis Jr., and it does not look good for Lulu. She was the last person with him. Her statements contradict each other. Her actions after the incident, not following the ambulance, not knowing the hospital, suggest a lack of urgency that is hard to explain if you truly love someone. And the physical evidence now aligns with a violent blow to the back of his head, not a jump from a moving car. But here's the hard question. Why are we only getting this now? Because GPD didn't do its job. They didn't secure the scene. They didn't pull the black box. They didn't recognize the severity. And they closed the case without answers. The family had to hire their own experts. They had to reconstruct the timeline themselves. They had to fight for every scrap of information. Now we're closer than ever to the truth. But closer isn't the same as there. Will GPD revisit the case with this new evidence? Will the state attorney's office file charges based on what the research team has uncovered? Or will Lulu walk away, protected by the very system that failed Dro from the start? The evidence is mounting. The contradictions are glaring. The medical findings are damning. But justice is not automatic. It requires pressure. It requires accountability. It requires people to stop fighting each other and start demanding answers from those who failed to do their job. So I'll leave you with this. After everything we now know, do you believe there's still a chance for justice? Or has too much time, too much drama, and too many failures made it impossible? We're here to ask the hard questions. And right now, the hardest question is this: what will GPD do now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And to our super thanks gifters, you make this work possible. Thank you. This is True Crime Unraveled. On YouTube, we're at True Crime Unraveled. On Facebook, it's True Crime Unraveled TV. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with us as we continue to follow this case. Justice for Dro.
In this moment, but everyone, we are coming back. It's myself, Shanae Jackson, who is the advocate or activist or whatever you want to call me, that is helping to support the family of Tyrone Davis Jr. As a reminder, Tyrone is the young man that was found in the road under the overpass on Archer Road in Gainesville, Florida, back on December the 27th of 2025. The family has been very adamant and working very diligently to get justice, and whatever that is, and justice for them is actually finding out what happened to their loved one. So there's been many things that have actually happened. So just very briefly to recap, most recently, we've done quite a few public records requests. So we've done records requests to Gainesville Police Department. We've done records requests to Gilchrist County Sheriff's Office. We've done records requests to the Alachua County Combined Communications Unit. We've done records requests to Alachua County Fire Rescue. There is a PI actually has been hired. He has 28 years of just law enforcement experience total. He was a law enforcement officer at the Alachua County Sheriff's Office for 22 years. He is nationally FBI certified. I even took the time to actually go and look him up, and like the reviews and things that he has. And even when I do like Google reviews and things like that, I like to look and see how many other reviews have people done and what kind of businesses they have to make sure they're legitimate reviews. And they have like a 4.8 rating for their particular organization, their companies. So they do like missing persons reports, they do like forensic investigation, just a number of things. In addition, I'm so super excited. A research team from around the country has been compiled. So it's a group of 4. Myself met with the family and members of that research team last night for a confidential meeting that was about 3.5 hours long. I was very, very impressed with what actually came out of that particular meeting. And what they actually did is went piece by piece with the evidence that already is currently available. We navigated other evidence or other things that we actually will be requesting in order to fill in some of the actual gaps. They normally do things in 10 phases. We're in phase, depending on how you look at it, 6 or 7. And they've actually do have a working theory. And so it's exciting to kind of go through that. So I did want to open it up for Natalie if she wanted to jump in and say anything. And then what we'll do next is actually talk about the expertise of each person that's actually on the research teams, each person that's on that roster, so people can understand the people who actually did this particular work, what their expertise is, what their education is in, how many years of experience that they actually have. We're super excited, even with them, and the things that they derive are from facts. They actually not only were able to derive certain conclusions from the facts, but they were able to dispel some of the rumors and things like that were out there to get rid of those like rumor mills and really wade through a lot of the stuff that is actually chaos to really get us steps closer to really finding out and understanding what's happening. And definitely want to share those things with you all. And so Natalie, I would love to turn it over to you if you'd like to jump in and give some insight before we go to the next thing.
Yes, I would just like to say one thing that my family has made it our business to do throughout this process is to understand that there are different individuals that play different roles that are beneficial for different reasons. And we thank everyone who is standing in support of this movement, finding these answers for Tyrone. And then we also thank everyone for the individual roles that they play, because the one thing that we as a family recognize, and then also me and Tyrone actually used to discuss quite often, is that a jack of all trades is usually a master of none. So it's important for everyone to understand what their role is and to make sure that they're reaching that role to the fullest of their potential and maximizing their knowledge in their specific field. So I think it's very beneficial for us to now not just have one person or 2 people that's helping us, but to have a team of individuals who all have specialties in different areas, who are willing to come together and drown out the noise, drown out the speculation, drown out the chaos, and actually focus on the facts and focus on what we have to kind of figure out what's still missing, what didn't add up, what's not there, and where we're trying to get to. So each of those individuals are playing a very vital role in the investigation process, and we appreciate the work that they're doing. Also, Ms. Shanae, standing with our family, navigating systems that we may not have necessarily ever had to navigate before. We come from a family with a very educated background, with a lot of knowledge and a lot of intelligence in different areas. However, it's always important to reach someone who is able to navigate something that you haven't, especially when it's your first time, because it kind of helps guide you. And working with her, I've learned a lot about public record requests, a lot about entering a room and demanding presence. And so I think it's very important to acknowledge everything that she's doing, and just to let you all know, to make sure that you guys understand everyone's delivery isn't for everyone, and that's fine with us. This movement is not for everyone, and we understand that. We are not asking for fake supporters. We are not asking for people to stand with us who do not agree with the cause or what we're pushing for. But we do want to acknowledge everyone who is standing with us, who does agree that this doesn't make sense, it's not adding up, and that there are too many questions for us to say this is enough. And so for that reason, we're going to continue to go. I didn't even update Miss Shanae yet. I actually did speak with the PI yesterday. And there was a lot of additional information gathered looking into things like the acceleration rate of the car and things like that. So there's a lot of actual research being done by all parties involved. And as a team, most of us are drowning out the noise and doing the business that needs to be done. And those who are not drowning out the noise are still doing the business that needs to be done and addressing what needs to be addressed. So I just want to thank everyone who is a part of this movement, who is a part of this fight, and who is standing with us and understanding it's bigger than us. Because like I told Miss Shanae, at the end of the day, this is justice for Tyrone, because this justice isn't going to make a difference. It's not going to help us, because once we get justice for him, it's just going to be us dealing with him not being here. So that's what my uncle meant when he said after his justice, it's just us, because we still have to process this loss. And unfortunately, a lot of our family members have not been able to truly grieve this loss, or not been able to truly understand and accept the grief and the loss and just the what's next of this process, because we still have so many unanswered questions and there's still so much that we want to know. So again, thank everyone who is supporting us and standing with not the Davis family as in my family as in relations to Tyrone, but the Davis family as anyone who supports Tyrone Davis Jr.
Give me 1 second. We're getting a baby situated. I'll be right with y'all.
Not a problem. I will see if I can open the chat. Maybe there's some things there that we can speak of. I see some of the family in the chat. I see someone says, you all inspire me, justice for Dro. Honestly, I think the biggest hope out of this, outside of actually figuring out what happened to him, is that we motivate someone else to stand with their family. We motivate someone else to love on those that love on them, and to not give up even when it's not clear, even when it's not easy to understand or easy to figure out. That's even more of a reason why you stand strong, you ask questions, and you fight the fight, because a lot of the times we're overlooked and we're underrepresented and we're not really given what we need. So I think it's important for us to understand that when you stand with someone, you fight 10 times harder than standing alone. So love on the people who love on y'all. Stand with the people who stand with y'all. Fight for what y'all believe in, because when I tell you it makes a difference, it does. I don't know if you guys are following or were following Dro that nigga on Facebook, was his Facebook name. But if you guys were following that page, we used to do videos every Wednesday. Me and him used to jump on, and we would do live videos where people could come on and we would talk about different topics. And now I have those memories because we spent that time together in real life. So we really loved on each other in real life. And as hard as this loss is, I think it's a little bit easier for my family because we have those real memories where we really connected as a family. We did game night at the park. We did family outings out of town. We went literally from Orlando to Mexico. Like, we went out of the country as a family. The last trip that I did for my birthday was Atlanta. 31 people flew to Atlanta for a birthday celebration. So the love that my family has is unmatched and unseen for a lot of people, but it does exist. And if you can either be blessed to be born into a family where that love exists, or create a family where that love exists, hold on to those people, because there's nothing like it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up the point, Natalie, before we get into the actual information about family, because I do want to center that. And I know a lot of people were stating that, or not a lot of people, some people were stating that you all were doing this for attention and different things. So I want to highlight the only way to ever get justice really fully for someone when a system is not working the way it should is through family. And so the reason that we know the names of like Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin and Laquan McDonald is because of their family. So I want people to understand, even too, because people are saying, well, how do you help with this case? I can't help anyone who can't, if their past, if their family is not the ones who are advocating, and I can't help anyone who can't help themselves. I think a lot of times because we only see bits and pieces of it, people don't see that particular part. The fight is only possible with you all. And you know, I've talked to you all behind the scenes quite often that where you're actually going through is actually normal. We just often don't see it because typically it is like police brutality that things are actually happening where people are defaming the family members' names or they're trying to make the family be this or they came from that. And so it's a little bit different because of how the circumstances of this case, but what actually is occurring is actually very normal. And so even too, as people are like stating like, ooh, you got all the energy that you can give them to them. This is the same energy that I get a police. This is the same energy. And so even people say you don't have time. No, you absolutely do, because you have to center what it actually is. You have to also center that a lot of times people don't stand up and fight because people make you think that you have to be perfect. So people feel like they don't have the right to fight for their loved one because the loved one is not perfect. And that's not the case. And I want to be clear that in the midst of this, I have a family member that just passed away in Broward County, one of the prisons down there in South Bay Correctional. And they literally starved my loved one to death. So the same way y'all see this level of energy, y'all going to see this level of energy down in Broward County. So every senator, every congressperson, the state attorney that I know, this is what will be happening in Broward County. And that's why, because that's my family. And so like, that's what it is. So I wanted to make sure to name that, you know, and I talked to Rob privately about staying the course. I want to also state, because people are seeing this, a lot of people that have reached out, they have reached out because of what they're seeing. And like, there's some people who've been navigating things for a year, some like a few years, and they felt comfortable to reach out to ask for help or support to state, hey, what are my next steps? Where they felt lost because many people have dismissed them. Another point that I want to make as well is a lot of times people say, well, oh, just go get an attorney. Well, a lot of times with an attorney, it's about how much they can recoup or recover. Well, if you're dealing in a situation where a person doesn't have a lot for you to recover, there's not as much of value for the actual attorney. And even in this particular case, as you know, when we stated when I talked to the wrongful death attorney, who was very honest, she said, you know, you can go hire one, they're going to take the money, but the point of the recourse for the wrongful death attorney is so that the family members or who left behind is comfortable. If a person doesn't have that, then it's going to be all, you know, for naught. And so helping to guide this process, and also wanting to share that because people don't understand that with a lot of the steps that were actually taken, they have been taken because of guidance from law enforcement, from a private investigator, not just because he's trying to be paid, because he has a proven track record that has stated this. And then also the members of the research team in their actual credentialing. So that, and then me with my own level and set of experience. And then also too, like with you all, and I know many people don't know like some of the things that you do. So having family members who actually work in law enforcement, and you know that it's not right in the way that things weren't investigated because of your own internal experiences and how things actually should work. And so bringing all of those things to the table as a collective is how we now, especially with the progress that we have made and is making. And there's so much. Like with me, when I'm very good at public records. And so like with the team, when we talked last night, they were like, your public records are very extensive, and they're extensive, which is my skill set because of looking for patterns. Pattern recognition is so very important because that is the way that when there was failures and how this happened, that they can weasel the ways out of. So when you can show that, no, this is a pattern, this wasn't a mistake, or if it was, this is the mishap, that is extremely helpful. Also with pattern recognition, it also helps to understand how a person should have moved, and you would expect them to actually navigate particular situations, and that helps you to understand how things actually don't add up. So I want to talk about the members of the actual research team. So,
and before you get into that, Mission A, I just do want to address something. So I will not address every comment. There's just never enough time in a lifetime to address everything. But I do want just to make a few things clear. First and foremost, don't believe everything you see on social media. Everybody who say their friends aren't friends. Everybody who says their family are not family. So please be mindful of your source, and you may want to vet some of those sources a little further. But then also, there's a few people asking about our family's relationship with both Tyrone's mother and Tyrone's girlfriend at the time of his demise. So first, I want you guys to understand that we are here about Tyrone Davis Jr. That's first and foremost. Secondly, since you guys are addressing it, I don't have a problem with that. But the proof is in the pudding, and the evidence is clear. If you guys go on his social media, if you go through the photos that I've posted on my platform, on Facebook, you will see the relationship was there, and the relationship was not toxic. There was a very strong bond on both ends of those spectrums. There was a very strong relationship with both of those individuals, and that was not only something that we've verbalized, but this is also information that they both verbalized to law enforcement, and they shared at our meeting. There was never conflict there. And as far as the individuals who are saying we know what happened, maybe you guys know, but we don't. So if you know, feel free to share with Gainesville Police Department, because we are still lacking that information. Hence why we are still pushing for justice. We have heard multiple accounts of what happened that none of those accounts line up with the evidence. We have only heard accounts from one party who is involved. And again, nothing that we were told adds up with what the evidence presents. Understand, we are not in a witch hunt. We are not saying 5 different people killed him. We are not focused on the sole possibility that it was just one person, or it was only this one person possible. What we're saying is this is who he was with. So if it wasn't this person, tell us who it was. If they didn't do it, tell us what happened. Give us the evidence to support whatever your findings are. We're not asking for a wrongful conviction. And I will say this time and time and time again. We are not asking for a wrongful conviction. We are not asking for fabricated evidence. We are not asking the police officers to arrest someone with undue process. We are saying, do your jobs, do the full investigation based off of what we know, because understand, our family has real work history. We have real backgrounds where we're certified in things like crime scene analysis and mapping. So no, you can't just tell us anything. We have real criminal justice degrees where we were educated in forensic science and crime scene analysis. So no, you can't just tell us anything. So we're not asking for anything to be fraudulently created like what's being done on social media. We're asking law enforcement to do a thorough investigation, and whatever that investigation reveals, my family is willing and prepared to accept that. So even if the investigation comes back and says, hey, this is an accident, if they have the evidence to support an accident, we will accept that. What we will not accept is a half-ass investigation that led to an incomplete or an inaccurate outcome because of a lack of evidence or a lack of doing your job. That is not going to be accepted.
Absolutely. I also want to jump back in because I'm laughing at some of the comments.
Me too.
And so I want to state that, because even as and mind you, I get and gather that people don't have as much information as we do. And so last night, as we were talking to the research team, one of the things that they were laying out is all of the information that they're gathering. So any search at all that is coming up related to this, they are listening to everything. They are pulling every article, listening to every video, every piece of evidence, every 911 call, every picture, every video, all the AI and different things like that have been provided. And so it's interesting that when we're listening to that, because they were able to debunk some things, we're talking in reference because there were things that even we were unaware of in the mix of the chaos. And that someone is in the comments stating, well, oh, you're referring to Polo. So let me help you. Hit dogs holler and guilty pigs squeal. because that was not any reference at all to anything that we were actually stating. So as I was unaware of an AI photo with Tyrone in red pajamas. And so I learned that last night from the research team, as I was made unaware of things that were circulating down south. So there was so much in the 2.5, 3 hour, maybe 3.5 hour call. It was a very long call that was very extensive. So the point of this update is to lay out the things that we actually do have to be unbiased and unfair. So if you're tuning in and from what you gather, you feel that it is directed at someone, maybe you need to take stock in that you in the back of your mind know it applies to that someone or this someone or that someone because they didn't vet their information. So I'm going to be the person to speak on it and state that very clearly. I think the issue that you all don't like, some people don't like, is that we speak plain, because what's understood doesn't need to be explained. But then also what is right is what is right. And I think the way that this has been skewed is I'm stating to other people, stating whatever was given as it relates to the family and this, that, and the other. I've been very clear about what's been presented to me. And then last night, listening to the research team, who is an unbiased group of people from across the country. One person is from North Carolina. One person is from Maryland. One person is from the tip of Florida, like North Florida. None of us know actually each other. One person of the research team has 17 years of nursing experience that is a doctoral candidate because she's an MSN. And then her specialties are forensics. She did autopsies. And then she has years of work in trauma, intermediate care, and actually noxic brain injuries, which is the injury that Tyrone had. One of the other people that's on the research team is an actual certified crime analyst. She actually has a degree in human behavior and psychology, and also in forensics and investigations. And then the other person, because we met 3 out of the 4 people on the research team, she actually has 12 years of experience, and hers is in documentation and reporting. So I wanted to make sure to state that even with what they actually came up with, they gathered the exact same thing that I actually gathered, is that what the family was stating is they didn't understand how there was not certain responses. So one thing for me is I reached out to Renee before any of these things happened in order, because they said it was a communication gap. As the family had stated, that even before they went live the very first time, they reached out to Renee and did not receive a response. And it's so interesting how people are sitting on the sidelines, making inferences and making guesses and judging with bits and pieces of information while not attempting to even understand. And then when you're giving actual accurate information, it's like some of people are upset about accurate information. And that's fine, but we're going to proceed forward to continue to provide accurate information. And so, like, with that, I'm going to walk through what was presented to us as a preliminary working theory, also with the actual disclaimers. And the reason, as I stated, they go through 10 phases. We're only in about phase 6 or 7 because there's additional information that we're waiting on. Also, with the information that we have, we're now compiling a list of other things that law enforcement should have done that is not done, and then other things that should have taken place that have not, that we now have to go back as we compile those and then either request that these things be done or ask why they had not been done, or to finish filling in the gaps, which is also one of the things that I explained in my initial video when I sat with the family about the process. And that process is waiting to get what law enforcement has, to see what they already have, to understand how they came up with the ruling that they did come up with, and then to be able to fill in those actual gaps with accurate information. I'm very fortunate that with the team, and also too, we'll give follow-up information because they actually are taking the time to put together presentations. They are confidential because of the high level of security of their actual jobs. So external from their jobs, this case is the only case that they are working on to give it their full undivided attention. And it's in conjunction with the work that I do, and it's in conjunction with the work that the PI actually does in order to get to the bottom of this. And literally, this is what an investigation should look like with law enforcement agencies. So literally all that's being recreated is what should have actually happened in the first place for the family to obtain the justice that it is that they're actually seeking. And so that is the reason we are also repeating some information over and over to ensure that people are getting it right. And what we're also what is interesting that even when you're giving factual information, because of people's own perceptions, they're taking it and skewing it and making it be what they want to be, which is fine. But we're going to make sure that we do our best to speak very clearly, very plainly, and then lay out what those things actually are. So, but the preliminary analysis, and they give a disclaimer, and I'm actually going to read that like word for word. It says the document reflects a preliminary working theory developed from currently available information, including surveillance footage, witness statements, scene observations, and publicly known medical findings. The reconstruction presented in this document is not a formal investigation conclusion, nor is it intended to accuse criminal or assign criminal responsibility to any specific individual. Rather, it represents a good faith analytical interpretation of available information for the purpose of identifying questions, inconsistencies, and areas that may warrant further professional investigation. This document is intended to assist the family, private investigators, attorneys, and other appropriate officials in evaluating potential investigative avenues. As additional evidence or verified information becomes available, the working theory may be revised, expanded, or corrected. All individuals mentioned in relation to this matter are presumed innocent unless and until determined otherwise by appropriate legal authorities. So the overview, based on available surveillance footage, witness statements, scene observations, and medical findings, the following reconstruction outlines a medically and forensically plausible sequence of events that may explain Tyrone's injuries and subsequent collapse. So the events immediately after leaving Papa John's. And so before I get into this, not so that we don't keep you on for 3.5 hours, there was a reconstruction of the actual timeline that was done. The reconstruction was actually so phenomenal that they're actually going to be able to put that part together in a presentation, and it will be posted. So when we get that, we will share, where they were able to, number one, map the time frame from when they left Gilchrist County and actually came here. They were able to reconstruct a timeline by looking at the time on the pizza box to know when they actually left Papa John's and compare that to the time frame that 911 was actually called. They were able to do like the overhead view from Google and actually trace and draw a line of their actual path. They were able to put on the actual map show on the map where Papa John's was, where Tyrone was found, and actually where the hotel actually was. Additionally, when I get further down, when they named the injuries, the way that his injuries we can now rule out that it did not occur at the hotel, and his injuries did not occur in Gilchrist County. So from what is explained from all of the medical evidence, we can infer that the injury that caused this happened after they left Papa John's. And so with the public records that we're waiting on from FDOT, and then now knowing to go back and look at the businesses in the area, and that black box, which I don't mind stating here now, which would actually be able to show actual driving patterns. So if there was rapid accelerations, if like bobbing and weaving, so that will actually tell a lot about what happened from Papa John's to where Tyrone was actually found. But it says Tyrone was last seen on surveillance video inside Papa John's only minutes before he was later discovered lying in the roadway. After leaving the restaurant, Tyrone returned to the vehicle with the girlfriend. It is believed that an argument either continued from earlier or began shortly after he got back into the car. And as we know with previous evidence, that witnesses in Gilchrist County stated they had already been arguing for 2.5 hours. And then we know that once they got here, that it seems like that, and actually by her statement, that argument continued on, and they stated that there were communications when she went to either AT&T or T-Mobile, because there's a conflicting statement there, that this argument continued on. So it says, after leaving Papa John's, the vehicle traveled to the intersection of Southwest 34th Boulevard and Archer Road, where the girlfriend made a U-turn. The vehicle then continued traveling toward the I-75 on-ramp. During this route, the driver passed the left turn at Southwest 37th Boulevard, which would have taken them back towards their hotel. The vehicle ultimately reached the area near I-75 on-ramp and Archer Road where another U-turn occurred. At or near this location, it is believed Tyrone requested to be let out of the vehicle. While Tyrone was still inside the car, and likely as he was turning to exit, he may have been grabbed by the left shoulder because scratches are later observed on Tyrone's left shoulder are consistent with this type of contact. At the moment, Tyrone appears to have been struck in the back of the head with a hard object, possibly a firearm or a similar blunt instrument. And so with the actual evidence, so now also waiting not just from the medical records coming from GPD, but now the family is requesting the medical records specifically from the hospital, because scratches from a roadway and scratches from being scratched by being grabbed are totally different actual scratches, and the fact of where they are, that they believe they're scratches from an altercation. There was this blow. Also, as they stated, as we were talking, when you think about multiple blunt force trauma to the head and then being hit in the back of the head. The next statement is my inference. I was very confused when the family has stated multiple times that Tyrone has 2 guns and the guns never popped up. I was confused because I stated that if he was not shot, why is it that no one would turn the guns over? Well, if he was hit in the back of the head with the guns and you're able to get them, then you would be able to actually match the barrel or whatever part of the gun with the injuries in the back of the head. So that's my inference. That's not anything that has been proven, but that is something that would add up and make sense.
And just to put the part that Shanae has already read into layman's terms, what the team was able to explain and then also visibly show is that in order to end up where he was found, they would have passed multiple locations where they could have turned to get to their hotel, or even made a U-turn if they missed their original point to get to their hotel. There was plazas that they could have turned in to turn around to get them back to that hotel. However, they were 3 intersections away from their hotel at the time the vehicle made the U-turn, where he was later found at his demise. So if you were leaving from getting pizza to go to your hotel, how do you end up 3 intersections past the hotel? So just layman's term explanation of what the experts, because these are subject matter experts, this is what they were able to find during their research and their investigation.
Yeah. And throughout the entire presentation, they wanted to make sure for them, they don't have a stake in this at all. It's right. Only about the facts and what is factual and what is plausible and what adds up and what does not. And so they wanted to make sure that we were very clear. They don't have a stake either way. It's about what the evidence actually shows. And so for them, whatever the evidence leads to is where we will land at. And so that's also when I stated about the barrel, I made sure it was the inference that I made, because for them, there is no inference either way. It is, they want to ensure that it is very unbiased and just facts based on facts, and that's it.
Yes.
So then they go into the primary skull injury. They said this blow caused high energy blunt force trauma to the base of Tyrone's skull. The force of the impact was severe enough to produce comminuted fractures, meaning the bone was shattered into multiple pieces, with fragments displaced toward the front of the skull. This type of injury is known to initiate rapid internal bleeding inside the skull and places the individual at immediate risk of catastrophic brain injury. And so what they were stating is, by the medical aspects and evidence of this, that was the reason they were able to rule out that this happened at the hotel in Gilchrist County, and that it had to happen after leaving Papa John's, is because the nature of the injuries, what came after would have happened very rapidly.
She said almost instantaneously. He said he would not have survived long enough to have left Gilchrist County and make it into Gainesville. With that type of injury, the impact and the outcome of those injuries would have happened within moments. Hence why at the scene he was unresponsive, unalert, and then en route to the hospital coded. It was because the way the injury was inflicted, he did not have the time to do like things from it wasn't a slow injury. It wasn't something that would have happened over a period of hours. It would have been an instantaneous, within moments, reaction to those injuries.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read further also too, and we'll give some additional insight. So despite the severity of this injury, Tyrone may have experienced what is known medically as lucid interval. During this brief period following certain traumatic brain injuries, a person may still appear conscious and capable of performing purposeful actions, even though internal bleeding and swelling within the brain are rapidly worsening. During this period, Tyrone likely requested to exit the vehicle, open the car door, stepped out of the vehicle, and closed the door behind him. To the girlfriend, Tyrone may have appeared alert or functional at that moment. However, internally, pressure inside Tyrone's skull would have been rapidly increasing due to bleeding and swelling. So then it goes into a witness account in the actual collapse. It says the girlfriend later stated that after Tyrone exited the vehicle and closed the door, she looked in the rearview mirror and saw him walk away from the car and then kneel. This account is consistent with the witness statement describing Tyrone collapsing shortly afterward. As Tyrone attempted to walk away from the vehicle, the lucid interval likely ended. As bleeding and swelling increased inside the skull, Tyrone would have rapidly begun losing balance, coordination, and consciousness. I do want to state at this part, as they got further in the discussion related to the statement by the girlfriend, when they listened to the actual 911 call and then listened to the communications after, when they were actually already in the ambulance, two things that they stated that came up between all of those communications. One was that the statement that the girlfriend stated that he exited the vehicle and that she closed the door behind him and she looked back. And then in the same communications, in the same recording they were listening to, but the girlfriend stated, oh no, she was going 25, 30 miles per hour and she was not looking back. And so just highlighting that there was a conflicting statement. So when law enforcement stated that the statements were consistent, the research team was able to show us last night that even before leaving the scene, the statements were inconsistent. And so even for us, it's not that we're stating that you did anything malicious. It's just the fact is that per the people communicating via their radio and walkie-talkies that can be heard, the statements were not consistent. So then they say secondary impact. Witness observations and statements suggest that Tyrone either knelt or dropped to his knees. From this kneeling position, Tyrone then collapsed heavily toward his left side. During this collapse, the left side of Tyrone's head struck the pavement, producing a secondary blunt force trauma to the left temple. At the same time, Tyrone's left elbow struck the ground, producing the abrasion observed at the scene. Additional scratches may have occurred as Tyrone's body shifted or rotated while neurological deterioration progressed. When a witness arrived at the scene, Tyrone was reportedly lying on his back and was observed writhing and groaning. These movements are consistent with what neurologists sometimes describe as a neurological storm, a condition in which the brain, after sustaining severe injury, produces involuntary movements and sounds that are not purposeful or conscious. At this stage, Tyrone had likely lost autonomic control of bodily functions. This loss of neurological control explains the involuntary urination visible in photographs at the scene. So before I go further, in layman's terms, one of the things that was pointed out that I actually missed is the two spots that were on the road. I assume that both was from him bleeding. One was not. One was the injury to the head, and the other one is that he actually lost control of his bodily functions. Also, what was the researchers were very, very adamant about, and what was very upsetting to them, is that the first responders on the scene should have automatically been keyed into what was happening because of the writhing and the groaning that was actually taking place. And then even as they were somewhere stating that his pupils were not dilated, she stated that was virtually impossible. They talked at a great extent about how upset they were at the videos at first responders having the nurse who happened to be a witness still in the midst of everything and not having her allowed to step out. Also, there was a responsibility for law enforcement once they got there to be the ones to actually administer aid. They were honest that no, it may not have made an actual difference, but the fact that they did not do their due diligence was extremely concerning from what they stated. And this is from them and their actual expert opinions and expertise about how things actually should go at particular scenes. Other things that were very concerning to them is how these people were walking through Tyrone's blood and his urination through his bodily functions in a very, very nonchalant manner as he was in such a serious condition. And then she also stated that in the call, they knew it was much more serious at first, but they had called it wasn't that serious because in the call you can hear it as they're in the ambulance headed to Shands. They changed it to trauma. And they had to do CPR and resuscitate him in an attempt to do so on the way to the hospital. So they knew that he was in rapid decline prior to him ever getting to the hospital. And see, these are things that with the researchers, because they've gone so much further with the information that has been collected, that has been hugely helpful. And then it goes into the final medical stage. Shortly afterward, Tyrone's body reportedly became quiet and motionless, which is also visible in crime scene photos. This stage is consistent with decelerate posturing, which is a neurological condition in which the arms and legs extend rigidly due to severe damage to the brainstem. The brainstem controls critical life functions such as breathing, heart rate, and consciousness. When the brainstem becomes compressed by swelling or bleeding within the skull, the body may rapidly transition into a deep terminal coma. From a medical standpoint, this sequence of events is consistent with the progression of a catastrophic traumatic brain injury. And then it just states that it's prepared by this independent research team. And it's for information and investigative review purposes. So we wanted to make it a point to come and read directly from what experts actually came up with to be very clear what it is that they laid out. I'm going to turn it over to Natalie to be able to give some additional context from the actual conversation. And then I'm going to give some additional context from the notes that I actually took from the meeting that we actually had last night.
So, as you all heard, we got a lot of information last night. We heard a lot of things. We reviewed a lot with photos, with actual audio recordings from the dispatch team, with reviewing medical terminology and actually having photos to show us how his posturing matches these things that they're explaining to us in medical terms, and then also breaking them down in lay terms for us. It goes back to something that I want the world to understand. So it is so easy for people to separate the human from the situation. But I want you guys to understand that this is my cousin. This is my first cousin. This is my mama, brother, son. And he has kids that for the rest of our lives, we have to look in their face and we have to be able to explain certain things and have certain conversations with. So with that being said, I want you guys to understand when you're on social media and you're making these posts and you're doing these things for the sake of your 15 minutes of fame, I want you guys to understand that we are really living this. And when I say we have not had the opportunity to grieve, I mean I cannot take a time to grieve because I know that my family needs me to stand in a gap and fill a role that I never in a million years thought I would be filling. And the one thing that I was told last night is that this is not something that you choose. This is something that chooses you. So being chosen for this, I will continue to stand in this role. But I need you guys to understand, we're not asking for sympathy. We're not asking for you guys to agree with everything we're saying. We're not asking for you all to understand or even accept everything we're saying. But be mindful, this is a human being. This is a real person. Tyrone was stepdaddy. Dro for y'all on social media. He was Dro that nigga. He was this social media morning motivation personality, but he was real. He was a real man with real love. And if you go back and you look at those videos and you see how every time he's around us, he's grabbing us and he's kissing us on the cheek and he's telling us he loves us, that wasn't something that he did for social media. That wasn't something that y'all get because he was doing it on a video, because video or no video, he was always him. He always loved on us. He always was there. He took his daughter on daddy-daughter date, something most men don't even know about. He showed his daughter what it looked like for a man to truly care about you. He showed his son what it looked like for a man to be a man and stand and work and provide and do what you're supposed to do. So when y'all around here doing all this social media clout chasing for attention, understand we really living this. This is really real for my family. And despite what it may look like, despite what people may say, especially people who don't know us, those who know us know us. And anybody from Broward County who has had any interactions with my family, anybody from around the world that has had interactions with my family knows that the love is real. And despite the foolishness that's being put out on social media now, everybody want to holler receipts. Tell them put a stamp on it. Show it for real. Y'all want to holler we scammers and we got fraud cases. Criminal records are public record. Pull it. If you want to say you got the receipts, make sure they're not expired coupons. Show the receipts and make sure they're real. But you can't take a little bit of truth and sprinkle it in with a whole lot of lies and think that's okay, because it's not. Because at the end of the day, if something was to happen to me, I know, I don't hope, I don't pray, I don't wish, I know them Davises gonna step by me the way I'm stepping by Dro. So it's mandatory that I do this. This ain't optional. This not a choice. Because when I go to his kids and I sit them two down and I have that conversation with them and I'm telling them what happened to their daddy, I need to be able to tell them, listen, everything that could be done was done, and that's how we know what we know. When we sit them down and we tell them this is what the police said happened to your daddy, we need to have the evidence to support it. We're not going to them with BS. Because I know what my daddy mean to me, so I know what they daddy mean to them. And I can't give them foolishness. I can't give them half-ass, and I can't give them part of the truth. So for everybody in the social media universe who keeps saying, oh, y'all know what happened, if y'all know, hit me up. Let me know. Let me know. Because I'm still looking. I still got a whole lot of questions.
Very much so. And thank you very much for that. And so even stating, so we're going to go further with some of the things that actually were also dispelled by the research team. So one of the things that came up was the video related to Wawa. So they were able to determine the timeline for that video that was in Wawa at Broward County, in Broward County. And actually it was a black BMW that they actually stated that time, and they were going around giving out gifts. Also, they wanted to be clear because that vehicle was not Kiara's car. There was something floating around on social media stating that when they did put up a picture with them at the cabins, that there were 3 bowls of grits. They actually put up each one and then circle all of the pictures. There was only 2 bowls of grits, so there was not a third person there at the cabin. Additionally, from all the pictures that were posted and shown with the actual vehicles, they actually had a neighbor who was being super nosy that was actually captured as well. There absolutely was no space in Kiara's vehicle in order for a third person to be riding back behind there. So very, very clear. They also mapped the time frame to be able to get from the cabins to the actual hotel. I noticed that someone asked, why is it that they went to the hotel and did not go home? We have not gotten a clarity with that, even as it related to the hotel, some with the calls that were made to find out if they were there. We are aware that Kiara went in first and tried to use Tyrone's car. They would not let her, and he had to go in. But even with law enforcement, they stated that she never went in. The way that we know that was because a family member made a phone call. And so one of the things that I've talked the family through is that when you check someone in, there actually is a date timestamp, so they can go back in and see who checked the person in and at what time. So that's, like I stated, as we gather things, some of the additional information we're going to go back and get to be able to reconstruct that part of the timeline as well, is to see what time did they check into the hotel, how long were they there before they decided to go get food, and those particular things. So to finish reconstructing the timeline. Additionally, things that was mapped is the hotel was 5 minutes in via car ride or 9 minutes walking to Papa John's. Additionally, there was lots of rumors related to a red car, and even too, there was like one of the spontaneous statements from the witnesses that they think got it twisted with everybody else. So that also has been debunked. There was no red car present anywhere. So to make sure that people were very, very aware. And like I stated, they really drove home and were really, really upset about first responders that were actually there and did not deem Tyrone in this situation to actually be an actual priority. And then also it still should have been marked as a crime scene. The fact that he was found on the roadway and was bleeding and different things. And the fact that they did not secure that scene. And when the family came down days later, those things were actually there. Other things that they also named that stood out was the pizza and the wings. In the manner in which his body was found in the location of the pizza and the wings, it looks like they would have been chucked out of the car just about where they were and where they actually landed. So making those things. Other things that also came up in the conversation that were extremely questionable is that when he was rushed to the hospital, Archer Road is a straight shot. So literally where he was found is on Archer Road. The hospital is all the way down. And Kiara did not know where and Chance has 3 hospitals all on the same road. So it's North Tower, South Tower, and East Tower. And she didn't know which tower he had been taken to because she did not follow him actually to the hospital. And so there is some question as it relates to what happened, like what took place there. So there's some additional things as we stated. So by having a black box, you're able to see patterns in where she traveled. And then from there, you're able to go see where did she pass by? What did light posts pick up? And so additionally, as I completed the public records request for FDOT, as I stated, even though they stated that all of the footage is live, I'm having awareness that sometimes, especially with something like that happening, they record what are called incidents. And so with those incidents, even if we don't have live footage, some of the other cameras may have picked up and actually have incident reports for us to actually be able to do a recreation as well. And then, like I stated, with some of the requests that I've done, they're so extensive that if other calls came into 911 at the time that he was found, we'll be able to listen into those, and then also any additional communications with any other first responders, because all we saw was actually the fire truck. And then another thing that also stood out as well is that when we met with GPD, they stated that Kiara was actually there with Tyrone, but from the researchers, what you state is Tyrone was actually already on the actual stretcher and headed there. And so by Kiara's statement, and she'd gone down to the gas station, and then she came back once she saw the ambulance. But from where he was found and from the gas station, she actually would have been able to see the other people offer help and everything else long before the ambulance actually came. And so these all of the things that are questionable, they don't add up. We don't know what they actually mean, but we need those additional things. And I see that there are comments that actually state that with these things should be arrested, as I've stated in previous videos. So the statutes are very vague. So yes, you may file charges and a person can be arrested on a charge. But even when you're arrested on charges, you're not officially charged with those charges until the state proceeds to file. And so, yes, in the investigative phase, you absolutely can have a charge filed. But in the prosecutorial phase, the burden of proof is higher. And then also, whatever charge they choose, it has to meet certain elements of the facts. And so also because of double jeopardy, you can't get a second bite at the apple. So while it is frustrating on the front end, it is best to continue to gather all of the information like we're doing it, sitting with experts, even too, as we're going through, because many of the things that they brought up last night, I would be like, Natalie, what did I say? And that's like, this was the same thing that I was thinking, because you can make some of the similar inferences with the information that's presented. So to be validated by the people whose work this actually is, lets us know that we are actually doing the right thing and definitely getting closer to getting the answers that everybody's actually seeking. And so building something that is solid enough to even go back to GPD and show them these are all the missteps. These are all the things to finish to go gather. And there isn't actual enough. One of the questions that the research team actually asked me, what are next steps? Well, it depends on what we also uncover now, because in addition to the autopsy report, we're going to also get the medical records from UF. And so that compounded with the medical records that we have coming from Alachua County Fire Rescue is also going to give us some additional information and insight. The good thing about the medical records from UF as well, they will document who was, denoted as next of kin. They document what conversations that they had with people. So any of the things that may come up in those particular conversations as well, in that documentation system, we'll be able to utilize as well to help fill in additional pieces of the actual puzzle. And so I wanted to be able to share with people to give them like a level of clarity, and to actually also show people navigating this process, so that if you're trying to navigate through a process, so you have insight on how to do it, what is the appropriate way to navigate through it to be able to get it, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, accomplished. Also being very clear to help people to understand there will be noise. If you got noise, if you got people that got this and that to say, it means you're doing the right thing. The only time people take the time to troll or have this to say or in their feelings is when you're doing something right. And so helping to center that for people. And so for me, it's very, very antagonistic. So it really upsets people that I'm that particular way. Like, we sit on these videos for sometimes an hour and a half. If you got an hour, because the time is the most precious thing that you have, to give up, to listen to somebody that you don't like, that speaks to issue with you, not to the person that you don't like. And so, like, being very clearly, for me, and I've been very clear about who I am, I'm always going to be petty enough and childish enough and all of those things that people think that they can weaponize to respond, because you won't control a narrative over here. And at the same time, because I can multitask, we're going to always highlight what is taking place, what actual work actually looks like, what advocacy looks like, because it takes systems change. If we change the system, we won't have to do so much advocacy. And that's literally what this is about. And when we don't have to do so much advocacy, we don't have to have families like the Davis family searching for answers. The system should have worked in the appropriate manner for them to already have had answers. And that's the challenge. It should never be an uphill battle to have law enforcement or our justice system to bring justice, when literally that's what our taxpayers' dollars are actually for. So, Natalie, if there was any closing or additional sentiments that you wanted to give and share, I wanted to open that up to you. I was going to see if there were any other questions before we actually close.
I have been watching the comments, and I will continue to watch the comments. I did see one question. Was there anyone else at the hospital prior to the family's arrival? I cannot say for sure. We are hoping that if so, it would be documented in the records. But as of right now, we don't have anything to support that there was. Also, I know that if you guys are on social media and you're following our family, you've seen today that we've made several posts just advising everyone that we are not supporting violence and we are not making threats online, because there have been allegations made recently, and there are statements being made as to that threats are coming from the Davis family. I want to clear that up. That is not from our family. So if you are receiving those type of threats or those type of statements, understand that it's not my family doing those things, that we do not support those things, and that ultimately we're not violent individuals. We literally just want answers. We literally just want to know what happened to him, and us sending threats at anyone would not help us to get those answers. So it does not benefit us in any way. We are a family that was raised off love, that was raised off of standing together. We were raised that way because that's what we were taught. Anybody who knows the Davis family for generations before us, that's how they were. Those Davis boys, before it was mostly a woman-dominated family, it was a male-dominated family originally. My grandmother had 6 boys, I think it is, and they were super, super close. Like, we were raised around all of them. So as a family, we've always stuck together, and we continue to stand with that. And as I stated at the beginning of this live, if you guys have family that are going through things or that have been through things and they need support, stand with your family, fight for your family, because at the end of the day, I take pride in saying I'm a Davis, and I know without a shadow of a doubt, if something happens, they're going to step behind me. I know that. And so for that reason, I'm asking you guys to love on your family and step behind them. Because guess what? It sometimes you may not have a team. Sometimes it may not be as global as this case may be. But when I tell you, sometimes it doesn't take as much to make a difference. Sometimes the Bible says, well, when two are gathered, where two or more are gathered, I'm sorry. So sometimes you just need two. So stand with your family, support your family, love on each other. Life is short. I never in a million years thought I'd be sitting here today without T2, not being able to pick up my phone and call him and have him call me Blackie and sell me out. Like, I never thought that would be where I'm at today. I never thought that we would be trying to plan birthday parties for family members where we're going to get there and he's not going to tell me, you always go hard for everybody. You always do your one, too. That's why we stand behind you the way we do, because we know you're going to step behind us. I couldn't imagine in a million years that I would not be hearing that again. So when I tell y'all life is short, and if y'all got problems with anybody, fix it. Y'all got beef, and I ain't even saying y'all got to be best of friends again, but make it clear, reach an understanding. Well, listen, we may not be the way we used to be, but we're going to agree to disagree, and we're going to rock out because that's just what it is. I feel like if you can fix it, because tomorrow ain't promised, and the last thing y'all want is to leave here and things not right. And I can honestly say, my cousin he got his business in order. He was really like fixing things, and he was really doing right. He was on the right track in life, and people want to give credit to certain individuals in the process of him changing, but truth of the matter is, guess what? Life is about choices, and Tyrone made those choices. Tyrone made the choices to do what needed to be done for Tyrone to be the best version of himself. He had support along the way. He had people pushing him along the way. But understand when I tell y'all, his girlfriend at the time of his demise wasn't the only person that pushed him. Tyrone was great because he had a village. Tyrone was great because he had support well before Kiara was ever a thought in his mind. So understand me when I tell y'all, say his name. That's right. His kid's mother just posted in the comments. Say his name, Tyrone Davis Jr. I said this at my granddad's 70th birthday party the year that he passed away. We were born into legends, and so it's only right that we leave a legacy. We will continue to stand how we are standing. We will continue to push how we are pushing. We will continue to step how we are stepping, because the Davis legacy is exactly that, a legacy. And we not letting up. We not done. We not stopping. GPD, get ready, because here we go.
Very much so. So thank you so much for Natalie for your candor. Very, very much so. As we've stated, as the additional information comes, we want to make sure that we share that. We are in that phase now where we're waiting for additional information. And then what happens is we sift through it and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. It goes with the research team where it is actually uploaded, and they do that particular thing utilizing their expertise. Yes, it is a lot slower because it is about taking the time to get this right. So making sure that whatever is presented is accurate, making sure that whatever is presented is factual, and proceeding forward. And it's a slow and it's an arduous journey, and it's a lot slower because it was not done right in the first place. And that is from the very first moment that somebody arrived at the scene, and then treated appropriately. Even as the research team pointed out last night, how the officer was just kind of standing over Tyrone, never took the time to even be interested and involved enough to understand how serious it actually was. And then also understanding from feedback from the hospital that there was a lot of time lost as it related to notifying the next of kin. And so there was a delay as those things happen. And so we don't know if any of those things, we know that the injury was so severe, and the research team was honest about that. So no one is hoping that, okay, well, if things happen faster, he would have survived. They were adamant that with this particular injury, and it was so severe and it happened so quickly, that there's a great chance it wouldn't have changed that. But had things been handled differently, we absolutely would have had answers, and it would not have had to escalate to the point that it actually is. And so wanting to center before we leave here, The reason that this has actually become necessary is because all of the steps that should have been taken have not. And then also just because questions are not answered. Wanting to center that there's a lot of pictures that have been painted as it related to the family. They've been fully agreeable, even with law enforcement when it came to calling the meeting and reaching out to the mom. That was her choice not to be present. Also centering, she will always be open to any information and to be a part of that. So there's never a time that she's not, because it was her son too. So anything that happens, we all have choices and we're okay with that. And even as I was very clear, I will always make sure of that. So even as others have gone and stated this or that, that still will never be my position. My position is to help to get to the bottom of what happened and took place. I will be clear, and I said this to Natalie even after we came, the way things are starting to line up, it is very clear that something happened. Even when something happened, I don't think it was intentional. I just think it was something that spiraled out of control. And that's just what I can infer from the information that's gathered. But we'll also state that sometimes that's unfortunate and those things happen. I'll be honest too, also feeling very fortunate, because I, was that girlfriend and I pop you upside the head and those things. And so this absolutely could have been me, at a particular moment. And so really, really has been very eye-opening to help to really, really navigate this as we, go through that thing. But as people are asking, as they're going back there, it does, in the transparent part of me, states that even as you're getting answers, it's where all roads lead to. So just being very honest. So no one's trying to give her a hard time and no one's trying to bash. We're just trying to tell the truth. And so people are going to have their perception. They're going to make it be what they want it to be. And people can believe what they want. So I definitely want to state that for us, it's about presenting what is absolutely accurate and making sure that everyone has that particular information, because the family signed up to be as transparent as possible. And so as next steps happen, we will make sure to try. There's one final point that I want to speak on. And I have a few friends that I've noticed that have actually commented. And I agree, they feel like I am stating the same thing over and over. And there is a belief that some people are being, we call it willfully obtuse, where you're not understanding on purpose. There was this whole lie about the family making $9,000 off of the sale of shirts. And so the family was very transparent, which Sinead, don't feel like they have to be, but they were very transparent and actually showing the actual, the link for the cost of the shirts. So they didn't charge anything additional. The actual shirt provider charged $30 for the shirts. That's for shirts that was all the way up to XL. Any shirt that was 2X or higher was additional dollars per XL. The family actually covered the cost of that. So they didn't make any $9,000. They made $0 off of the shirts. So, and some people say, oh, they say broke even. It's not even that they broke even. They actually kicked in the additional dollars that it took as it related to that. And I'm clearing it up, not because there's a level of necessity, but understanding how many people are just disseminating information without vetting any of it. And that's one of the reasons we're also being very deliberate to make sure that we clear it up. And the reason we're doing that is because if you're still perpetuating that narrative, it's because you like mess, not because you actually want any level of clarity or honesty. I want to also state, because I see people are stating that, oh, well, what lies were told. I've just literally let it be known what the research team has debunked. The fact that the theory of this case has gone to so many different people, and the same person or same group of people has changed who it all is, and you still are asking, well, how is it a lie? It's beyond understanding. It actually needs to be studied, but neither here nor there. So I wanted to make sure to center the reason for people don't understand that we are taking the time to do so and still explain certain things is because when the family embarked on this, they told you all that they would be as transparent through it all. And then I like transparency, because when other situations come up for other people, I don't want people not to step up and help them because of a distrust that's unwarranted is created because people have lied in a particular situation. So by helping them to be as transparent and upfront as possible, people are more willing that when another situation like this arises to take action. So we thank you all for actually tuning in. For those of here who are actually here because they want justice, and even for the ones that are here that don't want justice, we also appreciate the fan behavior. So we'll take that too. So
Right.